Hello and welcome to the Jessica Pinili podcast. Ashley, good morning from Australia. Good afternoon to you in America. How are you?
Hello, I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on today.
I'm very excited. I just said off recording for the listeners. I said, I'm excited to interview Ashley. She's a woman of many, many talents. And I actually want to start with something I found on your Instagram profile. You have a second Instagram page that I'm
Mhm.
currently on. Kind, and I will link this in the show notes below. You have 281K followers, and it's a page illuminating the good and the kind. And I had a stalk and I got lost in stalking it. What made you start this? Where did this come from? This is a beautiful page.
Oh, thank you. I call this is my love note to the world. I started kind back in I think 2013 or 2014, and it was just sort of a I wanted to see positive things. I wanted to see good things because I knew that there was so much good in the world. And it was during that time there was a lot of people hung up on the negativity, and obviously that I think that has definitely accelerated since then, or maybe it's just always been the same. But I just knew
Mm,
back then I was like, there's so much good happening, and I understand from just the energetics of it that you
mm.
see good, you feel good, you're inspired to keep the good going. And it's just that it was just something that just I wanted to see more good, so I was like, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna put it out there.
I love it. And like I said, I was stalking it. I couldn't stop. I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful. And I know that you repurposed one of the videos onto your own profile that got 5 million views, I think. It was beautiful. It was about two little girls and one congratulating the other. And why do you think that had such an impact on your personal profile of being shared and the comments were very positive? Why do you think it was such a big thing for people to see that?
Think it's because people are able to, right? If life is a mirror, reality is a mirror, everybody is a reflection of us. And when we see these good things, it reminds us of the goodness in us. And I like to encourage people to, when life gets really challenging and it feels really heavy, it's just like, kind of just reflect back and like, who are you when you're not trying? Who is just the essence of you when you are just being, right? You're not performing, you're not acting, you're not trying to do a thing, you're just being. And when people are just being, there's this, it's like it transcends goodness, right? It's just
Mm.
this state of this connection. And it brings me back to, I heard this quote before. Somebody said that there's not a person you wouldn't love if you knew their story.
Mm.
That is, we're all so connected, and it's one of the most just like innate natural things is just goodness.
If someone's
Goodness.
listening and they're nodding their head and they're agreeing, but they're like, where do I even start? I don't know how to tap into who am I? Who am I being when I'm not performing? Who am I being when I'm not putting an act for my friends or my family or even my partner? Where would someone start with that? Because I love this concept.
Mm. That's really interesting. So I think there's more and more people lately that have been kind of realizing this, like, something kind of feels like empty. There's an emptiness feeling, and they're like, you need to kind of get filled back up with yourself. I think one is interesting, kind of just a little reflection to do is, what did you love to do when you were little? What were the things that when there was, right, there was no, you weren't trying to make a business out of
Mm.
it. You weren't trying to do any kind of hustle with it. It was just what you were doing and like this natural state of you. And oftentimes, when people just reflect on that a little bit, they'll notice what comes up. And there may even be some resistance that somebody first feels to, oh, I don't like to think about my childhood because of all these XYZ, all these things happen. And you're like, oh, wow, well, this is all resistance. These are all things that are blocking from that essence of it just being. So I think it's really just kind of reflecting in on what are the things that you've always liked to do, and you liked to do for no other reason than just because you enjoy it. And who are the people that you really enjoy spending time with? When do you feel the most, I was going to say like yourself, but I think that people were to reflect on that still of the, what are the activities? What is the vibration? What is the
Mm.
frequency? What is the feeling of when you just feel like, maybe it's just content, just
Mm.
contentness?
What if someone's scared to be still and just to be and to tap into those feelings? because I think going back to what you said about remembering, when you're a kid, what do you love? I actually had this exact conversation with one of my best friends the other day, and I was like, isn't it so beautiful when you watch kids just playing in a playground and they're naive and they're laughing and they're so joyful, and you're right, they're not trying to build that sandcastle to make a business out of it. They're not trying to, do something to try and make a dollar, right? It's so I really resonated when you said that. They just do it because they love it. It brings them joy. It's fun. It's intriguing. There's lots of curiosity. But if someone's listening and they go, I'm too, number one, maybe too afraid to tap into that and be still and not be in this performative place in my life. Or number two, I don't know what that even looks like because, yes, maybe they didn't have the best childhood, or maybe they don't want to connect to that inner child.
Something I like to remind people is our bridge to the future is always this now very moment. It can be addicting to always be, well, in the future, in the future, in the future, I'll do this, or live in the future, right? And that's anxiety.
Mm,
But to just appreciate the fact that there is something to always be savored in the moment, whether it is just to like take a beat, take a pause, catch your breath, right? You catch your breath, you can kind of, your energetics can catch back up. There might be a lesson in the current moment that you are really need to see so you can integrate. It's just me really realizing that there's a gift in the moment.
mm,
And it is the kind of things, right, that depending upon where somebody is at, even in their energetic flow, they could be
mm,
like, that is unhelpful. I have too many things to do. But when you do realize it's just actually just taking a minute, catching your breath, connecting with connecting with your breath,
mm,
like you don't end up losing any time, and you end up, there's a strength that is gained in that process. I was actually thinking about this morning. I was at the gym really early this morning, and I was running, and I go through these, like, they have us I go to one of these like classes, and they have us do all these crazy things on the treadmill, and I was like making myself run really, really fast. And I was like, and I kept thinking like, oh, I want to stop, I want to stop. But then I realized, I talked with somebody afterwards about, and they're like, oh no, when I feel like that, I do let myself just slow down for like 10 seconds. And then it's this 10-second little like, slow down. It allows for everything to kind of catch back up. Because
mm,
I will even at that point be like, I'm not going to let myself go. I'm going to go, full fledged ahead. But then sometimes, like, that's how you twist an ankle. That's how
mm.
and the older you
Yes.
get, you don't bounce back as fast anymore.
Yes.
Ankle can take years. So it's realizing that, oh, just like, oh, take giving yourself a moment. It
Mm,
allows for things to recalibrate. It allows for things to catch up. It allows for clarity to come in. And it just allows for you to just be.
mm.
There's
Being able
always a
to
gift
slow
in that.
down before you go
Mhm,
faster. And I love that you said that about the running. I've actually recently started running over when this year started. And it's so true. I think in the moments where I can't possibly go any further, I think, how come I can't just slow down for a moment? Why
mhm,
can't I just go at a slower pace? And I love that, to kind of transmute that same thing into our life, as in this very moment where you currently are, where can you just take a breath, slow down,
mhm,
come back to your breath, and slow, and then take the move forward in that. I love that. In your Instagram bio, you've got futurists exploring the way forward for humanity. Please
mhm.
explain that to me and how that embodies who you are and what you do.
So in my professional, what I do with my clients, I am a futurist, an executive coach, and a foresight strategist. And so whenever I even talk about the future, I understand that I can be like, I love the future. The future is my favorite place. But I realize that you only catch up with this optimal great future when you do connect to it in the
Mm,
moment. So I am fascinated with the intersection of all things, from where we have the
mm,
science, the spirituality, the energetics, the strategy, how we can incorporate many of these principles and theories that have been, whether they're quantum theories or
mm,
they're esoteric, teachings, incorporate them into our daily life so that all these far off concepts are actually quite practical. And I just really enjoy that. And I realized in working with a number of clients, we are all so unique, and our
Mm,
gifts are in our differentiation. We have, as a society, there's been a lot of conditioning around homogenizing people. We're
mm,
all kind of, in some shape, way, or form, following this particular model of success when I don't even know who it's emulating, right? Or who even was that person that currently wants these things. And there's always like the changing landscape, the things that once were more accessible and be aren't as accessible, and there's new
mm,
opportunities. But it's only once we kind of do connect with ourselves, that is, that taking that moment, learning who it is that you are, allowing for your strengths to activate, to blossom, then you can, from that space, use your differentiation to help the world.
mm,
And I believe that as humanity is going through some pretty big shifts right now. I feel like whether somebody is really spiritual or they're in any facet, they're going to be like, yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. And I think within that is people realizing there's certain systems, certain ways of being that just don't feel aligned with people's hearts and what it is they actually want to do. So connecting people with their own energetics and strengths, and then as a foresight strategist, I look to a number of different
mm,
signals in drivers. And I know people realize this. Well, people who have worked with me for a while, they know that I've been an astrologer for a number of years, but it's so fascinating to realize if I say astrology to some people who are not in that world at all of a sudden I could be like, nope, null and void. Everything I say from that
mm,
moment forward is just silly. But that's that kind of old world. We have to kind of bridge these different worlds. So one of the signals that I use and I feel is very accurate is astrology, and then I'll use
mm.
people's human design to help them align with their own energetics. And it's funny, like even as I'm saying this, I'm like, oh my god, some of this stuff it sounds so woo and it sounds so out
No,
there,
we love the woo on this
but
podcast.
like
Keep speaking. I love it.
it's like I feel like I'll have like one foot in like both different worlds. One of them is
Mm,
this like, oh, we are in the ethereal plane, we're at the, but there's another part of me that is very rational, in the sense that like, my rational mind has to get on board with everything. And I think
yeah.
many people are like that, right? So when you think around some people, why hypnotherapy will work, how even like placebo, right? Like actual like placebo effect. This is like a real thing. It's a real thing where people can be affected by things that they aren't aware of they would be. And when it comes to then things like astrology and human design, if people are very closed off to it beforehand, they're not even allowing for the wisdom that can come from it. And with any of these systems, these tools, or astrology, human design, gene keys, all of these, so there's a couple things I think they are. One of them is I think it could be our epigenetics. So it's showing the way our genes are modified by our environment, our experiences. So it's showing kind of the way in which we may be conditioned, and then the way in which we are energetically kind of designed to have certain strengths, certain storylines play out, and we feel more in alignment when we do go forward
Mm,
with those storylines. But then there's there's a lot of different factors to it, and a big component though is that's not set in stone. I think a lot of people
mm,
they get freaked out by this, thinking, oh no, what if, oh no, is it going to tell me something? People always would be like, oh no, is it going to tell me something bad about myself? And I'm like, no. But the fact that people think that shows this, like right there is a great reflection point of like, when you're about to learn about yourself, why are you afraid that the first
mm.
thing you're going to find out is something really bad about you? Like if I
Yeah.
say that with love, but with like a little like, it's silly, but we all do these silly things, but it shows this like such a human vulnerability that we have. So then you think around vulnerability, that even connects what we were talking about, right? About taking the moment to connect with yourself, going inwards, learning about ourselves, learning about how we can use who we are to help the world. It requires vulnerability, it requires creativity, and it requires, I guess, a lot of resiliency and
Mm.
trust at the same point.
I can tell how much you love this work. I had goosebumps when you were speaking, and there are
Aw.
so many different points from that that I want to dive into. I guess one thing that I really appreciate that you kept coming back to was having this, I guess, this practical, really rational. I think that there has been such and you've definitely probably seen it, such a movement of human design, astrology, all of that, but not a lot of practicality behind it for the 3D physical world. And I think that's why a lot of people maybe get skeptical or maybe think it's not something that can be applicable in our everyday life. I mean, I wholeheartedly believe in it. And so for the people that are listening and maybe they are a little bit skeptic, can you please explain how you help your clients kind of use these two facets to create change in their life?
A big component of it is starting off, well, I've started with my clients. It's about helping them first get clear around like where are they currently at and where do they want to go. I realized right off the bat, a lot of people, they'll just, it's easy just to feel like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I want, but this sucks. And it's like, oh,
Mm,
what do you want? And it's like anything but this. And you're like, whoa, let's like kind of get it, like allow for some creative thinking, allow for us to kind of release ourselves from this like like prison. It's like a matrix prison that it's so easy to get trapped in. And I think a big component of that is thinking we're running out of time. We should be
yeah.
farther along, fill in the blank. All of these cliche things that go through so
Mm,
many people's minds all the time. So first is trying to get a little bit of understanding of what do you want? Okay, what do you want? And don't have any shame around it. There's a lot of people even know that. They'll be like, well, this is what I would want, but I know I can't have that. So I just want this. And it's like we do this to ourselves all the time. We really box ourselves in. So first is gain some kind of clarity on what is it you want. And from there, we look to these charts. And these, when you look to these systems, they can be you can I mean that you can go deeper and deeper and deeper, but with sometimes with these systems you can go so deep that then you get lost, so then you lose that practical lens as well. So I like to kind of take it a little bite by bite so we can apply it, experiment with it, test it out. But within these
mm,
systems, like for human design, for example, there's four different energy types, but then there's subsets within those. So that right off the bat helps somebody understand their energy type, to understand their aura, their energetic presence, how they're designed to kind of work with reality. And it's in different ways. And so often we're kind of always trying to be something other than
mm,
that which we are. And I like to always give people the example of you could have the most amazing, like fancy, top of the line vacuum cleaner, but if you didn't take a chance to read the manual, to learn about any of the incredible things
mm,
you would do, you would just be like, what? This seems basic to me. Nothing special about this. Or worse yet, somebody can have a vacuum cleaner but be trying to use it as a hammer, right? So it's
mm,
like things are as good as their like their utility, as like they're actually being put to use. So when we look to these systems, we get clear on first the energy type, and then we look to even a big component of it is the location of where the sun was when they were born. That is thought to represent 70% of someone's energetics. This encoding, this activation that is a big infusing their consciousness. So this is going to be an energy that is in everything that they do, whether or not they are aware of it. But once you're aware of it, you see
mm,
the, oh, okay, that's why I'm like that, And sometimes that's why I'm like that is something that they like about themselves, but they feel weird about, or it's something that maybe they are doing, or something that they're like they don't even realize that that's something that is so unique about them. So we'll work within these systems to then help gain clarity around how to get where it is that they want to go. And then from there we will also use systems like hypnotherapy. We'll do some frequency. There's a lot of different modalities to do, but it's always coupling that with strategy. And something else I've started doing with my clients is also helping them kind of get their mind around the futures thinking. I think that futures thinking, thinking like a futurist, is one of the most
mm,
important ways to think, because it allows for you to notice the patterns, notice what's going on, get creative with it, and then be able to use that creativity and that foresight to put yourself into the storyline in a really optimal way, because we
Mm.
see, like, when we look back on our life in reverse, so many things make sense, and we see like, oh well, had I known that that person did that and I would have done that, or had I had that prepared at that point, then we look backwards. We have to just trust that that ability that we have to be the, what do they call it, the Monday morning quarterback or whatever of our lives, that we'll be able to do that going forward, but we have to be able to kind of loosen our grip and connect the dots. And also, the gift of doing that is, it's really, then it's this, you can see how things can go together in a better way. Sort of like, you'll see people that have, whether their aura is indigo or they're the indigo child, that kind of mentality, that mindset can sometimes be associated with somebody being very idealistic. And I've talked about this quite a bit lately, how when we think about certain phrases or words that we'll hear, like, oh, idealism, or that person's
Mm.
so idealistic. And I think, may we all be a little bit more idealistic. May we all be able to like see how things in our life, in society, can be better, but not view it from a space of like judgment or bitterness,
Mm.
but rather inspiration. Like, oh wow, this system is busted. And I think I can think of some ways that we can raise this up, but it requires somebody holding on to that vision, their vision, and having their energetics on board as well. That's where it's like, is this like multi-dimensional approach to be able to not just forecast, but to put yourself in it, and then be able to
Mm.
maintain, attract, build, right? There's a lot of different factors that go into success. And I think a lot of people don't always realize that, well, it's, we, we are, we can be pretty complicated beings, right? We got a mind, we got feelings, we got
Mm.
energetics, we got trauma, we got dreams, we got insecurities, and it's, but to be able to work with all facets of ourselves and kind of mold the future.
Mm.
I think it's just, that's why I say I'm an optimistic futurist,
Mm.
because I just see so many people that are really like coming online, right? They're becoming more aware and they're waking up, but also
Yep.
they're waking up to their own magic.
Yep.
So I do that with individuals and then with companies as well, and I
Amen.
love it.
I agree. I think we're moving into this generation where we are waking up and we're realizing our potential. I would love for you to share for each of the human designs, if someone's listening and they are struggling with the motivation or to get started or wanting to move forward in their life, what's a small piece of advice you can give to each separate human design?
Okay. So let's start with the projectors. Projectors, you are so aware, you see so much, you're here to guide, but it's
Mm.
important that when you are doing this guiding, it's about really working within your network, working within your connections so that you have that recognition from the people. So it's about making sure that when you are sharing this wisdom, you are sharing this guidance, it is to people that are going to be receptive to what it is that you are saying. So when people are learning human design, there's always this, they always talk about, oh, projectors, wait for an invitation or wait for all of this. And sometimes it's easy to think that that means like, oh, you're waiting for permission or approval. And it's not that. It's just the fact that you want to make sure that you are using your energy in a way that is going to be of use. And you're not going to be wasting your energy. That's the hugest thing for projectors, is make sure like, ooh, don't waste your energy. Make sure that the juice is worth the squeeze. And if you're like, nah, then just save your energy. Save your energy. It's a big one for that. Manifestors. Manifestors are here to initiate. They're here to initiate. So that like wild idea you have it for a reason. You're designed to spark something, but then you get the other people involved to respond to what it is. So still it's going to be around working within. You'll make sure you have some people that are going to be responding to what this is, whatever this activation, this spark, this catalyst, it's like you're a catalyst you're putting out there. And something that we always talk about with manifestors, it's about then, it's in order to not deal with like anger yourself, you want to feel free. And a big part of feeling free is to not have other people be like on your case about stuff. So one of the pieces of advice for manifestors is always to inform. Let people know what you're going to do. And again, you're not letting people know for permission, for approval. Rather, it's because the way in which a manifestor's aura is, they're so much more impactful than they ever realize. It's something as simple as, say a manifestor and maybe a couple of generators are hanging out. The manifestor is just like in their own trip. They get up to go to the bathroom, but because they were so in their own trip, they didn't realize that maybe the generators just asked them like what they want. Like, we're ordering food, we don't even know what you're doing, and but then it like almost creates this rift. But there was also like something in the energetics shifted when the manifester left, and it's something as simple as that, but it creates this. It can create a little bit of like an unnecessary rift where it's like ugh, kind of a headache. So then from there, then the manifester may develop conditioning around
Mm.
like I don't want to deal with people. People hold me back. So instead, it's just you have an idea, you're a catalyst. But when you're gonna do something, just sometimes let the people who
Mm.
may be affected, just let them know. Just about not having problems, right?
I
Then
resonate with that. I'm a
yeah.
manifester. And
Oh,
until I
awesome.
learned about human design, I never really realized why I had this habit of just letting people know, my partner, my friends, like of the things I'm doing. Or I have another really close best friend. She's also a manifester. And again, we would just always be updating, like, this is what I'm doing in business. This is this. And I was like, I'm just someone I have to tell, like, hey, I'm like going to the bathroom or like I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Sometimes my partner would be like, okay, okay. And then when I learned human design, I'm like, oh, this is quite literally a part of me. Like I feel safe. Like this is how I let everyone know what I'm up to.
Isn't it just fascinating? So often when
Yeah.
people start learning these systems, they realize, oh, well, I already did that anyways. And you're like, oh, great. But it shows you, it's like, oh, a lot of these things are things that people have already been doing. And it could be because you learned at an early age. It's just easier. It's
Mm,
just easier. Just let somebody know what you're doing, right? And again, but it's not for permission, it's not for
mm,
approval. It's just because you are so much more impactful than you realize that somebody else like it's just that somebody else may have been like really like needing your energy there and then you left and then but then it creates this ripple right where the like you it's something that's
yep.
so small can happen where they're like I was having a really bad day and I finally felt the moment of peace and then you walked out and you're like I had to pee
Yep.
God I can't do anything right but the person's like I don't know why I'm so sensitive we're all just bouncing our trauma off each other but so for a manifestor sometimes it's just like hey I'll be right back, okay? Somebody
Yeah.
else, okay, thanks.
I love that. It's so, so accurate. And when I did find that, I'm like, oh, it just makes so much sense.
I had a roommate a few years back that was a manifester, and I found myself being that way about something that he did. But I look back and it was funny. He was like not he like didn't come back to the apartment for like 2 days. So then I messaged him and I was like, hey, are you okay? And he's like, oh yeah, I went out of town. But I was like, well, I didn't know. And he was like, well, do I have to ask your permission? And I was like, well, no, of course not. But then I was like, is this me being weird? But I was like, are you dead? What happened to you, man? And then
I
I
love that.
realized, like, oh, that was just him just doing his thing. And like, nobody did
Mm,
anything wrong, but it was just the very difference of energetics. Because I was like, are you alive? I don't
mm.
know, right?
Yeah. What's happening? I love that.
So that's manifestors. This way, it's just like letting people know because you're so much more impactful than you'll ever realize. And then we have the generators. So there's generators and manifesting
Mm,
generators. The same energy type, a little bit of differences in the way in which the energetics operate, but for both of them, it is around making sure that you are putting your energy into things that create more energy, right? So it's even if you're exhausted, you are sleeping to get more
mm,
energy, right? If you're going to watch TV, you're watching because it is going to charge you up. So
mm,
generators are here to be the builders, but to create the energy. So there's almost this responsibility generators have to have energy, create energy. So really doing things that create more energy. Think about the things that you have in your life where you're like, well, that's an energy suck, or that person's an energy vampire. Be mindful of those because those came up for you for a reason, whether it's a job, whether it's whatever. But it's realizing that when you are in this state of flow, when you're in a state of satisfaction, you feel more at peace. And when a generator has their energy operating accordingly, it's like everything runs smoother. And of
Mm.
like, it's like there's like a generator, like a generator battery, but it's like spurting out and going crazy.
I've noticed
That's
that
like
with the generators in my life. Yep.
when they feel stuck,
Yep.
it's like it's really intense, but it's intense
Mm.
for generators as well. But for a generator, then it's to realize like, oh, where are you boxing yourself
Mm.
in, boxing yourself in. And then the reflectors, there's about between 1% and 2% of the
Mm.
population. So these are the people that do not have any of the defined centers. So the totally open, they are here to know their milieu, to know the environment. They are
Mm.
able to be incredibly psychic and have this incredible attunement. The people that can be the empaths of all the different types of the
Mm.
energetics, from the intuition to the emotions to the thoughts, to be able to go in and be like, something's amiss. And then from that
Mm.
space, be able to figure out what that is. And one of like the advice always for reflectors is when it comes to making a big decision, wait a full lunar cycle. And the reason for that is
Mm.
that the moon goes through all of the different gates throughout the month. There's 64 gates which can create definition. So if you even track that, you can see, oh, okay, so during, these few days I have this definition. And especially with the moon, but then you can also do that with the sun
Mm.
throughout the year. Because maybe for example, say you have gate 34 coming off of the sacral. You have that activated, but it's not creating definition. There's going to be a time coming up where the sun will be in gate 20, which comes off the throat center, for 6 days. So during that period, you will have definition as actually a manifesting generator during
Mm.
that particular time. But if you even just look to the moon goes through all of the gates, and you can do this by actually getting software, or you can even just journal.
Mm.
Journal every day, just a little bit of like, I felt this way. And then notice, what did you feel clear about this particular day? Or even if you take one situation that you're dealing with, can journal about how you feel about that situation every day, and then later on go back and look through it to notice where there was modifications and where were you just like, I'm quitting. And then you're like, no, I actually feel really good about this. Everything is data. And if you look
Mm.
back in your life, you realize that's all we're ever actually looking for is data to help us go forward.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it is. Everything in our life is data to move forward and to see where do I want to be next. I love the breakdown of all of that. What is your human design and your sun, moon, and rising?
So I am a generator. I'm a 1/4 generator, my profile, and my sun is a Capricorn. It's in gate 61. If you're familiar with that, it's the very top of the head center there. And then I have my moon is Aquarius, and it's in gate 13. And then my rising is Virgo.
Nice.
What
Oh,
about you?
beautiful. My son, I'm not sure about the gates, but my son
Mhm.
is a Gemini. My moon is a Virgo and my rising is Capricorn.
Nice, 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 nice.
Yeah. When did you start to have you always done this? When did you start to actually shift into what you do? Because what you do is so powerful and impactful.
I have always felt very, I guess, curious about reality,
Mm.
just very inquisitive, very curious. I feel there was a part of me that always was like this, but I didn't really understand it until probably about 10 years ago. I started learning astrology. But before that, I was studying universal laws and I was studying all these
Mm.
things, but I realized it's like I had the I had like the book learnings, right? I had they from the intellectual lens, I was learning all of these things, but life is our greatest teacher, right? You can learn how to manifest all day long until you're like, why is this not working? What's happening?
Mm,
So then you have to like go in and do more work. But it's been now for about a decade. I was really deep into astrology, and I look back when I was learning astrology, and it's still it's fascinating to me because it was like the first time I ever remember learning something, and it came so easy to me. Like, oh yeah, and I thought that was so interesting because
mm,
it's not like when it's like an obscure topic like that, like it came so naturally to me. Then even human design didn't come, 'cause human design astrology, it feels more intuitive. There are markers, there are points, but there still is, it's kind of, you have like the pieces of the story, then you weave them together. Human design is much more based on the data. But what I love about how I do it is I merge human design, gene keys, and astrology together. So it
mm,
creates almost this like, where a birth chart, where it's just like just the encodings from just when you were born, right when you popped out. That's kind of like a one dimensional. But then when we
mm,
have our human design, it creates like another dimension. Then you add the gene keys into it, which are the same markers, but just a different application of them. It really creates this like synthesis to understand ourselves in a really profound way. So then I now go back in and throw in the manifestation and all of this. And I have really found it fascinating when anybody just uses these systems. So through the lens of these systems, they reflect back on their life and they see why things happen the way that they did. And it could be from a space of, oh, I was really hurting, or I didn't have self-worth. Or it could also be, oh, well, I naturally always gravitated to these things because of that. Anything else felt like death, or it's, they always felt this resistance within themselves because they felt like they should do this, but they didn't want to do that. They wanted to do this. And it's always this part though of how can we get into alignment within ourselves. And when people allow for themselves to kind of wear their charts, there's an incredible amount of like feeling seen, and like you see yourself, like you feel so seen by yourself, and the interconnectedness of everything just comes together in such a profound way where life can seem so random, so chaotic, so difficult, so this, so that, so that. But then you see how these pieces come together, and you're like, there is such intention. And when you see these little moments of just absolute intention, at least for me, it allows for me to have more trust in those parts of
mm,
life that seem messy, that seem painful, that seem chaotic, because you're like, it's got to all be for a reason.
mm.
Got all be for a reason. So now I let the dots connect on their own versus try to force them together.
Yeah, I think a key piece in there, there's two. Number one, the really the having the self-awareness and the self-reflection that's kind of together. But also what I find very powerful with what you do and what you're speaking about is it gives people this element of power. Like you do have a choice. You do have power in your own life. And I think that there are a lot of people who believe that they don't because of what has happened, their trauma or where they're at, their own suffering, whatever that may be. And obviously, there's different degrees to everyone. But what I love and the big theme that I'm getting is you absolutely have the power to create your future, to create your reality, to use these tools at your disposal and to do what you really want to do and what inspires you and to be authentically you and to get into alignment with that. And it's so interesting what you said about, when you started the astrology, it came very, very easy, prior to doing this business. Been in this business now 5 years, and prior I was in the fitness industry. And when I got into business, being a coach in 2019 was not a thing. It was not a thing. And it felt so effortless though. It was like I decided and I created, and I was like, this, whatever this is, whatever's happening right now, this is it. And this is meant to be. And so I urge everyone listening to find that where it feels effortless, where you allow yourself to explore, but also know that you have to take responsibility for the part you're playing in your own suffering.
Absolutely. I think self-love and radical
Mhm.
responsibility will solve, if not all, almost all
Yep.
of our problems. Allow for yourself to like grant yourself permission to have what it is that you want,
Mm.
but then that's realizing that you hold more of the keys to the kingdom, to the castle than you realize. So then it's why aren't you using them? Why do you have them? Why do you
Mm.
keep losing it? You know, it's all these different things. So then that's where it's when it comes to people talking about just like, oh, here's how to manifest, easy, 1 2 3, and then people can't do it or they feel stuck, and it's because there's different facets of ourself that we aren't allowing to come forward, or parts of ourself that we are just suppressing, or there's emotions that we aren't dealing with. So if you think around our body
Mm.
being a vessel, there's this emotions are so powerful, but if something is blocked, you're kind of going to be at war with yourself, and there's this resistance. So sometimes it is just the essence of letting go, releasing, releasing, taking that, right, going back to that moment, taking a beat, taking a pause, allow for that little space between stimuli and response. So you can have the small little mutation. It's a small little transformation of a moment. Those come forward. Those come forward. And it's this part of breaking like the habits of who it is that we are, so that we then can embody who it is that we are, this higher essence. And it's always, for example, like when you look to your gene keys, which is all of these are based on the same. So the human design and gene keys are based on the same notes, almost, if you were to say, but then just the different application of them. When you look to your gene keys, it always shows the within every one of these keys there's a gift, there's a city, which is the highest essence, and then there's the shadow. So it's about seeing that wherever there is this highest essence, there's a shadow. Wherever there's a shadow, there's the highest essence. It's the same note, just a little bit of a different frequency. Right? So it's the idea of wherever there is like overly seriousness, there's also joy. You have to just kind of flip something. Choose the perspective. Wherever there is a space of feeling constricted and confined, it's like, oh, oh, maybe right now it should be a little bit of acceptance of just how you're feeling, if nothing else. It allows for things to kind of loosen up, so then you can use some innovation to move forward. But it's about realizing that in each and every little moment, there's just a little tweaking that can be done, that everything is actually quite close. And I think this will be people to bring in different quantum quantum theories around, right, multiple realities exist. The only one that's real to us is the one that has our awareness in this moment in time. So if you apply it in that regard, it's right, you're right now you could be in a you are in a very serious reality, but there is one of joy. Just
Mm.
so close, and it's just sometimes the space between those is just releasing. Releasing, then it allows you to come back to that state of who are you when you're not trying? Who are you when
Mm.
you're not trying to prove a point, get someone's respect, any of that? You're just being. I know even it was Abraham Hicks talked about the essence of to get back into a state of flow. It's if we're all like the fishing bobbles, those things, and you push them down, you push them down, you push them down, it can't float. But if you just like you release it, the bobber, whatever that's called, it comes back up. It's just releasing, just for a moment, releasing, because then you can gain some clarity. You can see why you have why things have been difficult, and typically it's a lack of self love, and then responsibility as well. Typically.
Releasing and letting go. I There's a reel that you made that I really, really loved. I'd love for you to also touch on as we're coming to the end of this episode. I think it's important. You were explaining that we're coming into the shift of coming into, I may get it wrong, but into a year 9 from year 8 after a 20-year cycle. Um, can you please explain that? What is
Yeah,
happening
we
in
are
this shift
current.
in the world?
I love that you looked at my content. Thank you. I'm getting back now into
Always,
making
always. Oh,
making a ton of content. I had to do a little Bob and like
yep.
release moment.
Release.
I had some meta issues
Mm.
last year. So releasing, but now it's all figured out. So I'm going back in and I love the timing even. And you mentioning this because everything is so aligned. When we look to feng shui, to Chinese astrology, every 20 years we enter into a new period. 20-year periods is a total of 9 of them. And just last month, we entered into a period 9. Period 9 is the final 20-year period in a 180-year cycle. And each of these periods, it has different energetics, different keynotes, different even people in society that it's thought to be elevating. The one that we just exited, which was the period 8, that was around the element of wood and then mountains. So that's a lot of building. That's a lot of like, so even agriculture, that's physical building. That was a lot of hustle culture. That was a lot of like build, scale, build, scale, build, scale. And it was around the elevation of young men. So we think around how that may have all tied together. It creates a pretty compelling narrative to a lot of what we saw this last 20 years. And especially relating to even if we think around how that those energies may have been influencing media, may have been influencing all of our perspectives, how we were all conditioned. If we think that a lot of society was modified to maybe the preferences, the gaze, the interest of young men, right? So that was that period. But now we are in a period 9, which is about the elevation of what's called, well, they say middle-aged women, but I think that's just women, right? This is women. It's the essence of where it's at. It's that middle-aged women where it's the women that have wisdom and the women that are here to share their wisdom, to share their compassion. And it's also about intellect and fire. So it's the mind and it's fire. So when we look outside of just that, it's also including technology, but connection, about passion, but with the elevation of women. So we can think, kind of do a little bit, reflecting on how we think that may modify society the next 20 years going forward. I think we're going to experience a lot of changes in the way people connect, the way people want to connect, the level of depth that people want in connection, the level of depth that people want even in, we can say, marketing, right? The way in which people influenced could be changed. If you think around his last 20 years, maybe it was a lot of that, influencer kind of just influencer energy where it was buy this product, just, wasn't, it didn't have to always be partnered with a great level of, of depth or trust. I don't mean it in a mean way, but right, there
Mm,
wasn't always a lot of, it was just like, buy this product.
mm,
And you're like, okay. Whereas I think now going forward, it's gonna be more about like the why. Why can I trust you? How can
mm,
that relationship element? People want to buy from, work with, connect with people that they know, like, and trust and feel supported by. And then when we think about the technology coming on, the way that it is, it's such an accelerated fashion, and how we see human consciousness expanding in
mm.
such an incredible way. I'm excited for the future because I think that if we have enough people that are connected with their heart and their unique strengths and from a space of compassion, I think we can do incredible
Mm.
things. Not just these next 20 years, but even moving forward, but knowing that these next 20 years can play a really pivotal role in how the next, decades play out. And I think then being women, it's like perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I definitely feel like I've already been feeling it. It's so interesting because over the past few months, I've been having a lot more conversations about we need more connection in the online space. I feel that's one reason why I love threads a lot. I feel like we're very honest, we're very open, we're very it's more easy to connect on like-minded values and understandings, where I feel that we've kind of lost that over on Instagram. I think TikTok, yeah, we're getting there with the connection, but yeah, I've been having this conversation, and this is part of the reason why I've taken this year to have a more collaborative approach when it comes to my podcast, because I'm like, how can I connect more? How can I share these wonderful stories and create that? So I'm excited as well. I love
And
this.
I think that's even like that's a huge component where I think business going
Mm,
forward, I think a lot of people are realizing that this current systems that we are all operating within, they at the very least need some modification, right? They
mm,
can use a little bit of revamping, a little bit of a sprucing up. And I think going forward, it's really around people coming together, using your unique strengths, and then creating systems with other people.
mm,
So that's communities, that's businesses, that's partnerships, but where it's really about this interconnected web. And even when you look to, like, for example, we can say blockchain or Web3 versus the way things have been, is this shift that is thought to be taking place where it's this kind of mutation from a very hierarchical, so a very like up down approach to one that is much more dispersed, like a web where you can pull on one single part of a web and the whole thing doesn't come down. But from this hierarchical to this web, I think a little bit of a tumult, a little bit of a rocky system, could be in the way. And
mm.
that's where it's this trust and this creativity and this differentiation and these partnerships. It's kind of, when something falls, when something does
Yeah.
fall over, it's like, oh wow, this could be really, really exciting. Like, I guess I'm envisioning like a piñata, coming down.
Yes, yes.
We still have all the same stuff. We can just do new things with it.
Yes, I love that. That's a great analogy. I'm going to think of that. I love that, and I think, I wanted to just bring this in here because that's, I feel, for my listeners, it's so important for us to understand this, and I do have majority women listeners as well. So Ashley, when I end the podcast, I have a range of questions and I always
Yep.
choose one. It's random questions. And I'm trying to think which one I would love for you to answer. I think this is a bit of a fun one, a bit of a different one. If you found yourself stranded on a deserted island with only three items, what would they be and why?
Ooh,
You're the first time asking this question too.
I'm like, huh. So I got to the island. It's on my own. I got nothing with me.
Nothing with you, only three items. And why have you chosen those items?
Goodness. Oh, I have like so many more questions, but I think that's probably the
Yep.
point. My goodness. Okay, that's like, so I'm gonna want something to be able to like capture my idea. So I'm thinking I probably can't have like a phone, right? If I give a phone, it's
No, no phone, no phone, no technology. That's the only rule.
that's like you have a genie. You can ask for one wish. You're like a million wishes. You're like, no.
No, no technology.
Okay. No technology. I think so. First thing, even when I saw it here, I would bring probably this ring that I have. It
Mm,
feels like it is like it feels like it's a little piece of something magical that I have on. So I
mm.
feel it would help anchor me to like my magic because I always
Nice.
also turquoise is really great for the throat chakra. So I feel like you have that. If you have the healthy throat chakra, you're able to realize that what you're seeing is actually for you to
Mm.
utilize and apply. That'd be one.
Okay, I love
Next
that answer.
one,
Yeah.
something to feel magical with. Next one would be, so I'm gonna want something to capture like my ideas on, to be able to write, to be right. So I guess a journal. I feel like it's
Yep.
a lame thing to bring on a desert island though. They got the ring. I feel like that would anchor me into
Mm.
like, okay, I feel anchored, know where I'm at with myself. That'll be the one. Like, this should not be so hard. I'm like,
It's a big question. I was like, I feel like you're the perfect person. You're going to come up with something different, and the ring's a good one.
Ring be the one. I'm trying to think, what are things that I regularly, this might seem like a silly one, but I'm gonna say a comfortable pair of shoes.
Okay. I like that.
I'm,
Yep.
I'm on an island. I got
Yep.
rocks. I mean,
Yep.
I don't know if I got landed here naked. I got
Yeah,
shoes.
true. The shoe, that's a good one. Okay, we've got your ring for a bit of magic.
I
We've
got
got the
I got
shoes
a
so we can
ring. Got
hike.
a ring to feel magical. I got shoes, so I feel like I can take on
Mm,
whatever is coming. This way, I'll be able to feel more connected. I'll be able to like connect with
mm,
animals. I'll feel much more supported, tapped in, magical, which is good for all those things. Now, last final one. Oh no, now I'm like on this naked kick. I'm like, well, I don't have pockets to carry carry anything in. Thing, like a picture of people that I love, a picture of people that I love, and
okay.
end of my dog. I feel like these three things, they're very one's very practical.
Mm,
The other two are much more one's physical, one
mm,
is one's more spiritual in that lens, and then the other one is emotional. So I feel it's kind
emotional.
of like
Yeah.
that like mind, body, spirit.
Yes. No, I love that. I think you've got a good trifecta of things to help you.
Yeah, I'm just
Great
thinking about the
answers,
things
love.
that would actually help me feel like I got this, and I'm gonna be. Cause
Mm,
I don't know what kind of island this is. I
yeah,
don't know what
that's
kind of
true.
encounters I'm gonna be dealing with, but I feel as long as I feel physically supported, that's a huge advantage. Next
Mm,
one, if I'm connected with something that reminds me of my magic, huge. And then something that helps me feel to activate that love within myself. I
mm.
feel like I'm golden. I'm golden,
Perfect trifecta. I love it.
or at least I'm better off than I
Yeah,
would be.
exactly,
I
exactly.
still have a lot
And
of questions, but
but
I'm happy
you
with those
great
answers.
answers. I'm happy with those too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for your time. This was an incredible episode. Where's the best point of contact for everyone to find you, chat with you, see how they can work with you and learn more from you?
So my social medias are Ashley Mosaic, and then my website is ashleymosaic.com. And on my website, I have where you can get a free human design chart. So I have it set up as a free energy profile, and I really love the way that I set this up because it provides a lot of extra little goodies. It's the things that I always wanted to
Mm,
know, and then also the things that I didn't know that we could know through these systems, such as our cognition, which is our sixth sense, kind of our, oh, this is the thing that you do that you get extra information from, as well as how you are designed to take in sustenance and information. And then
mm,
it goes over obviously your profile and your incarnation cross, which is like your storyline. So I really recommend people do that. It's totally free. I love it, and I love letting people know that that's there because I set it up in such a way that I feel it really it's very helpful, and it's synthesized in such a way
mm.
that I think people are like, oh, I get it.
That's great.
But
I'm gonna go do it. I will put
perfect.
all of your details in the show notes below for everyone, but I'm definitely going to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate this has been an
Thank you so
incredible,
much.
very insightful episode.
Oh, good. This was such an honor. I just loved connecting with you. You're so
Mm,
easy to connect with and chat with, and you're so warm and inspiring. This is the future. The future is here,
yes,
and I just think it's
yes.
fantastic.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for your time, and I will speak to you soon.
Perfect. Thank you again.